This weekend, some shocking news. An American hockey star by the name of Adam Johnson, according to NBC's coverage, has died after a, quote, freak accident during a game in a British hockey league Saturday, his team said. Johnson, who hailed from Minnesota, was 29 years old. Johnson, NBC further reports, was playing for the Nottingham Panthers, which is in the Elite Ice Hockey League, against the Sheffield Steelers on Saturday night at Utilita Arena, Sheffield, when his neck was cut by a skate blade, the Associated Press reported. The Panthers tweeted Saturday that the Challenge Cup game was stopped for a bad injury and players returned to the locker rooms. Fans were later asked to leave the building due to a major medical emergency. The Panthers said in a statement that Johnson has, quote, tragically passed away following a freak accident at the game in Sheffield last night. Now, I'm reading all this coverage in a couple places, NBC, AP, a number of news outlets, and they all frame it the same way. This was a freak accident. A skate hit this man in the neck and it killed him. But nobody tells you whose foot was in the skate. What was the name of the man who's responsible for this, whether by accident or otherwise? Well, it turns out that man does have a name. It's Matt Petgrave is his name. And for more on this saga, it's a very weird story. It's a media story. It's also the story of a man who just lost his life. And what were the circumstances by which that occurred? Let's get into it with Bobby Burack now. He's a columnist for OutKick, and he joins us on the phone. Bobby, thank you very much for spending some time today.
Yeah, Vince, I appreciate it. You're so right about how bizarre this story is. And I've seen those same headlines pretty much, and they're writing them in passive voice, essentially saying that Johnson died, but they're not saying who killed or how he died or whose skate went in his neck. Very, very odd. And look, you watch the video. We'll talk about it step by step. Let's just go by what we know for a fact. There appeared to be, based on video, a collision between Matt Petgrave and the victim. Now, it looks like it's accidental collision, which is very common in hockey. You're skating, you run into people. But here's what's not so common. When Petgrave begins to fall into him, he lifts his foot up in the air and towards Johnson's upper body. His foot has a cleat on it, which is a blade. I don't understand why he did that, and that to me has to be in part the question. Now, there's a big debate on social media. Some people saying, well, this Petgrave guy killed him on purpose. I don't believe that, but it does appear based on the video he was trying to do something with his foot.
Yes.
Maybe it was just a bad decision or whatever. I don't know, but this isn't like this Johnson just died.
So
somebody's cleat caused him to die.
I haven't ice skated enough to merit an expert assessment of this, but I will say that I would think that if you were looking to regain your balance, you would try and put your foot towards the earth. You would try and put your foot towards the ice to do that. And instead, as you watch, there's some slow-mo footage going around now. His leg makes a clear move upward, and then he jabs it forward towards the player, Adam Johnson, towards the decedent. And my guess, if I was being generous with what I was staring at, it looked to me like he was using kind of a dirty move to create space. That he was trying to take his foot, to jab it into this guy's chest, to basically push off of him and create some space. But he strikes him in the throat. He obviously strikes him in the throat. And what stands out to me about this story is not only the tragic circumstances by which Adam Johnson died, but also that Matt Petgrave's name is not in the coverage of. How could you do that? How could you describe a scene like this without mentioning whose skate it was, Bobby?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So I tried to think of the best analogy because I am trying to contextualize this because it's so bizarre. Vince, it's almost like you're falling down the steps, but instead of just going down, you turn your fall and land on someone knowing you might hurt them, but you might protect yourself. That's almost what happened. So no, I obviously don't think this Petgrave guy was trying to kill Johnson, but you could deduce from the video he was reckless and neglected to worry about Johnson's safety and instead tried to, I don't know, protect himself by putting his foot up. Clearly, this was a reckless decision-making process, albeit in a split second. But I'm still with you. This idea that Petgrave's name isn't part of the story, it's just irresponsible by the press.
Yes.
My first instinct was, look, and this happens quite often, not to this extent, but if you and I organized a pickup ice skating hockey event, just privately owned, and somebody died by that way, the police would likely, in the UK, arrest the person whose cleat sliced the dead person's neck and at least bring them in for questioning to see, hey, was this manslaughter or
Right.
what was this? Now, what the prosecution does at that point, that is up to the legal process, and I really don't know or here to say what should happen. But what I do know is that this player, Matt Petgrave, he should not be excused or allow an exemption just because this happened during a professional hockey event.
Right. Yeah, no, being involved in professional sports is not in any way a permission slip to commit a grievous crime upon somebody or a negligent homicide or manslaughter. It's something very awful has happened here, and I think it takes a little bit more scrutiny than what a tragic freak accident. And especially when we have video footage, unlike say you and I had planned some sort of non-professional event, this is a professional event with multiple camera angles all capturing this moment, and they include what looks like him raising his leg and kicking this guy in the throat, kicking Adam Johnson in the throat. So with that said, there's another piece here, and I found it in your column. I wasn't aware of this, but Matt Petgrave apparently is one of the highest penalized guys in that entire league, including for basically acts of aggression. He's been busted for spearing quite frequently. He's been booted out of in the 2 of the last 4 games. He's been kicked out for abuse of officials. He's the top penalty minute taker for his team. He's had 71 minutes in just 11 games in the penalty box. So in other words, this guy's kind of trouble on the ice. And based on all of that, not exactly out of character to think that he might raise a skate into somebody's chest at least.
Absolutely. And what annoys me from the media coverage is that, and I think I've said this on your show, Vince, I was always taught as a journalist, you really have two jobs, and actually a pretty easy position. You ask questions and hold people accountable. We should be asking the question, hey, why did Petgrave raise his leg? Why did he aim his cleat at Johnson? That is not calling for his arrest or saying he's a murderer, which I know some people have done, but nobody prominently. But we should be able to ask those questions. So for CNN and CBS and NBC to just leave Petgrave out of the equation as if there's no questions or he is in no way responsible for this is negligence on their part. That is malpractice. And that's all I did in my piece was say, look, here's what we know.
Yes.
Here's what has happened. Here's what both sides are saying. And here's what would happen if this wasn't a professional sports league. To me, those are all facts.
Yeah,
I'm just asking the question, hey, yeah. And I guess I didn't even ask the question. I just said, look, I don't know what the next step is, but I think that we should scrutinize this situation and treat it like we would any other accidental death.
Let me bring in another element here that up until this moment neither you nor I have mentioned, which is apparently there are people that are trying to play up a racial component to this. Because in this case, Petgrave, the man who was wearing the skate that went into Adam Johnson's neck, Petgrave is a black man, Adam Johnson is a white man. And I noticed in your piece today, the Daily Beast is attacking so-called right-wing grifters, trying to capitalize on a black man killing a white man. Now, I don't know anything. I don't know why your race would contribute to you deciding to kick somebody in the throat. I don't see how that's even a relevant feature here. But it does strike me that it is highly likely the media have noticed the racial differences here and have decided not to tell you Matt Petgrave's name because he's black. In other words, if anyone is wielding race here, it is the media who are trying to avoid giving Matt Petgrave any scrutiny and using his skin color as a shield for that reason.
Right. So in 2019, a black NFL player by the name of Myles Garrett swung his helmet at Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph, who was white and made contact. Remember, these football helmets are solid, hard objects. This is a 270-pound man full of muscle swinging a helmet towards the skull of a white man. Now, why does race matter? Because the media did the exact same thing, saying, oh, the right-wing media people, the Clay Travises, the Will Canes, they're only upset about this because a black man swung the helmet and they're trying to capitalize on their white supremacist fan base. So it's like this weird thing where when a black person does something wrong, the legacy media gets in front of it and says this is only a story because the person is black, and other way, don't pay attention to the story, move on. It's only a story to right-wing grifters. It's a very bizarre strategy, but it's actually quite effective, and it's very tiresome.
For sure, and I'm reminded. You reminded me of this of back in 2021 when in Waukesha, Wisconsin, a black man attacked a Christmas parade. He was driving his vehicle, drove through it, and the media described that as a car attacked the parade. Do you remember that? The car attacked the parade.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell us anything about the suspect. They decided that was a detail that we didn't need to know about.
Yeah, so I actually pulled up that CNN headline. I have it right here on my laptop. I'm going to read it to you. This is the tweet and headline from CNN. A city in Wisconsin will hold a moment of silence tonight, marking 1 week since, this is the key part, a car drove through a City of Christmas parade, killing 6 people. A car drove through as if the car was possessed by some demon and drove through a parade and killed 6 people and nobody was behind the wheel. What type of stews do you have to be to make the headline a car drove through just to leave out the person behind the wheel to pretty much absolve them of their responsibility, which was killing 6 innocent people? And by the way, the guy's name escapes me now. That was also a black man, and on his social media account, he put out stuff essentially admitting that he fantasized about hurting white people. So that was one of the few times where race was actually a part of the killing, and the media just refused to acknowledge it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's so once again, it's actually like these lefties in the media who prioritize race in how they cover and don't cover things, and then they accuse everybody else of that. Hey, Bobby Burack, thank you. There's a lot more to this story. I can tell already, and I know you're very early to this. Thank you very much for your perspective on it.